Hello, YouTube land. This is Brenton coming to you from Lexington, Kentucky, the Bluegrass State. I know it's been about 5 or 6 days since I've placed a show out for everybody to listen to. Let's see here. I've had this one fellow that I had been reaching out to, and he's reached out back to me, and I think we got our numbers kind of mixed up or something. But he finally emailed me back, and I called the number he gave, and I think this is going to be a really good show for us. But anyway, we'll get to our guest in just a second. His name is Jamie from Indiana, and I had a few stories from Indiana that we had done here recently, and I was wanting to kind of put all those into the same part of the month. But anyway, we're going to get to this Indiana story because there's a lot of activity in Indiana. We've had Greg Yost and had several other people come on here lately that's told us things about Bigfoot in Indiana. But anyway, if anyone has a story out there they would like to share on this show, you can contact me at brentonsawin@gmail.com. If you want to contribute to help with the show, you can go to a link in the description, PayPal me, and every contribution is very much appreciated. And I guarantee you this, that I've had several fans that have helped me out recently, and through this time where we've had a crash in YouTube, and I appreciate it very much. It has helped me stay going. I wouldn't have been able to keep going if it wasn't for the contributions that I've had. So I want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much for your contributions. And any of the naysayers or here recently, I had this one particular fellow that has a channel of his own that was knocking me about this for receiving contributions. It's like, look, man, I worked at PBS. I worked at KET in Kentucky here, right down the road from me, Cooper Drive. And it was the number 2 PBS station in the world, next to one in Japan. And we took 2 times a year to where we raised funds to help make the programs. And if it wasn't for the contributions that we got from the citizens that liked the shows that we produced, we wouldn't have been able to keep going. And that was the number 2 PBS station in the world. So anyone who wants to knock a YouTube channel for taking contributions is basically not in the know, and they have no clue what it takes to make a decent show. And that's all I want to say about that. And if that offends people, then you can be offended, and God bless you. I don't want you to be offended, but you just have to be offended. Well, anyway, we have some Bigfoot stuff coming up that I think is going to be really good here, and it's from Jamie. And
Yeah.
Jamie, go ahead and introduce yourself, man. Tell who you are and tell where you're from as much as you want to tell, and we'll start there.
All right. Well, my name's Jamie. From the East Central Indiana, 42 years old. I'm in sales. I guess that's I like being outdoors, like hunting and hiking and metal detecting and stuff like that, and just trying to enjoy life to the fullest. That's just about all I can say.
You know, when I lived in Indiana, I lived in Columbia City. I lived in Marion. I lived in Wabash. And my dad ended up moving to where the Speedway is.
Indianapolis.
Indianapolis, yeah. But I didn't personally live there. And then my brother lived in Sinesville. But basically, I grew up. I was born in Kokomo. Okay, so
Uh-huh.
Kokomo, Columbia City, Marion, and Wabash is basically where I lived there. Is that close to where you lived?
Yeah, that's 40 minutes either way. Yeah, it's close.
Okay, just trying to get a gist on it because I remember when I lived in Columbia City, having a few odd encounters because we were out in the country. It was called. I lived on a road. It was called a roller coaster road. It was real hilly, and there was a bunch of cornfields, and you could go through these cornfields and go to these big wooded areas that were swampy and things like that. And now that I think back on it, it's like, man, this would have been a perfect squatchy type area because a lot of my friends rode horses around. We lived, out in the country, and it was a lot of farmland, a lot of corn, a lot of swampy type woods and things like that. So where you lived was a lot of wooded type areas, even though it was probably flat. Correct?
Yeah, yeah. You know, patchy wooded areas, some big, some small, a lot of fields. Not too far from suburbia either. So,
Right. Right. Correct. Okay. Well, tell us about just take us on into your story from the beginning when you first started noticing things and you know uh, the progression of it.
okay. Well, uh, I've had a few strange encounters over the years. First one being, we was about, me and a buddy of mine, we were probably 13, maybe 14, and he'd spent the night with me over at my mom's place. And north of where my mom lives, there was this big field, and there was a patch of woods on the left side of the field, and then another patch on the right side. And we got the bright idea we were going to go squirrel hunting. And so we got up about 3 o'clock in the morning and took our little 22s out. We headed up north, across the road, got to the cornfield, and I remember the moon was still out, and it was really, really bright. It lit up our path through the woods. And so we walked probably 20 minutes at least to get to these woods. And we get to the woods, and we decide we want to go into the woods and get settled and, wait for dawn to come, and the squirrels will be out barking and climbing the trees and, looking for breakfast. And we thought we'd get us a few squirrels. Because my mom had said that she would make us, some squirrel food out of it. Squirrel dumplings or whatever, she said. And so we thought we'd get us some. Well, we got up there into the woods, and we got in probably, I'd say 20, 30 yards into this little thing of woods, and there was nothing, no crickets, no nothing. It was just quiet. And we stopped, and we're standing there looking around the best that we could. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, something started circling us. And we were just standing there kind of real quiet looking at each other, and it just kept, circling us and circling us. And it was loud. And we started getting a little anxious there. And my buddy said, "What is that?" And I said, "I don't know. Maybe somebody's big bull got loose or something, a cow or something. Maybe we rustled up a big buck or something. I don't know. We just kids." But it kept circling and circling, and the ground would, when it would walk, this is where I got to the point where, okay, this ain't something on 4 legs. This is something on 2. The ground underneath us felt like it would tremble. So this has got some weight to it. And then all of a sudden it started to huff and puff. It was like, and then, yeah, you're scared. I mean, we were shaking. My buddy actually started to cry a little bit. I mean, he was getting upset, and it just kept, going around us. It never would get close enough to where we could see it, but you knew it was there. It was stayed back in the shadows. And I told him, I said, we need to get out of here. And he said, well, I'm leading. You walk behind me, and we'll walk back to back home. And we got out of there, and we got out in the field and everything, and we walked all the way back, back to back, all the way back to my mom's house, and told her, and she just, kind of, well, I told you not to go out there. There's all kinds of animals, and just should have stayed home, and we, it scared us. It scared my buddy more. Even to this day, the last time I ran into him, we was at a county fair, and I brought it up to him, and he got really upset with me, and he said, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to bring it up. He said, if that's all you want to talk about to me, then we're not going to talk at all. And we haven't spoke since, and that's been 3-4 years ago. It shook him up that bad. And I know that he's not been out in the woods hunting since then. It was that terrifying to him. And I was scared too, I just wanted to get the hell out of there. And that's the first true encounter that I can say I think we've had with a creature in the woods.
And that was and where was that at?
East Central Indiana.
Okay. Because a lot of people wouldn't think of Indiana as being a squatchy place, but it is, and so is Ohio.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I've gotten several reports from Indiana, up in northern Indiana, just all through central to northern Indiana, and even southern Indiana. So really, all throughout Indiana. Indiana is a very squatchy place, and where people, for the most part, thought of Sasquatch being in the northwest. It was hard for them to fathom there being something up there, and I think it was Ohio that started making people think more about, hey, Sasquatch may be in Indiana too, because Ohio had the Grassman, and the Grassman was the reports from there were a little bit more prevalent. Cause my sister saw one there, and it's like, well, heck, if Bigfoot is prevalent in Ohio, then it darn should be in Indiana. But it seemed like the Indiana Sasquatch was a little bit more elusive, harder for people to comprehend it or see it or something. I'm not sure. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree to a point. I've talked with other people over the years that have, hey, I've seen this in the woods, and we heard this noise, and I had one lady who told me she lives in the same county that I do, and she lives by a huge patch of woods, and she said that they had a tall, skinny one that was reddish in color that would play with her kids in the woods.
Wow.
Yeah. And she said that it got a little bit too close to them and scared them, and they ran home, and it ran with them home, but it always stopped right before it got to their yard, like it knew, okay, I can't go any further here. And then one night it was at the back door. I guess they hadn't played with it for a while, or been out, she didn't let them out in the woods or something, but at the back door it was beating the hell out of her back door one night and getting her dogs all riled up and stuff. And
wow.
She said that the only time that she saw it, they were having a fire pit party, and she said that it was up in the tree, standing on the branches, watching them at the fire pit.
My
And
goodness.
she said when it noticed them, because they noticed him, she said he literally just leaped. She said probably 20, 30 feet up in this tree off this branch, leaped right off, hit the ground, and ran into the woods, and they had never seen it again. So me and my cousin, who I'll tell you another story that me and him had a really, really wild encounter in the middle of the day. Me and him went out to these woods one night, and we got in there and we was walking around, and the moon was out pretty good, so it was kind of a flashlight a little bit there in the woods. And I picked up a good hard stick, and I said, I'm gonna do some knocks and let's see what happens. So I did 3 knocks, and then we stood there for probably 20 or 30 seconds, and we got 3 knocks that come out of the north. And I was like, okay, here we go. So I knocked again 3 more times. Well, he knocked back 3 more times. But after those knocks went through, knocks to the east come back 3 times. So we had 2 in the woods. I knocked again 2 times this time. I got 2 times out of the north, 2 times out of the east. But they were closer this time. Both of them. So we decided, well, that's enough for us for tonight. It's time to go. So we got on out of the woods, and, you know, we called our friend to come pick us up on the side road, and we got on out of there. So the lady wasn't lying, I don't think, about what was in the woods behind her house, because we were right there in those woods behind her house where everything had happened. And so that was another encounter that we had. An encounter we had when we were probably 16, 17 years old. We were behind my cousin's house in the same county. Now, mind you, a lot of this has taken place in the same county over the last 20, 25 years. And except for one encounter was in the county south of us. This encounter, there was 4 of us, broad daylight. We were behind my cousin's house in the back 40 woods, just messing around. You know, just walking around, hiking, just, you know, doing whatever we wanted to do. It was a nice day. And we'd startled something up in the tree line next to the creek. And this thing was so big, all we saw was a black figure running from us. But he was so damn big that the trees that he was running through, you could see them things dancing back and forth when he was hitting them with his shoulders, trying to get away from us. And we all were just froze in fear. And he was running in the direction that we all needed to go to get back home. So needless to say, we went the other way till we found the road, and we walked the road all the way down the next road, down that road, then back up the road to come home. Because this big black thing was just barreling through these trees, knocking them left and right. It was something to see, I'll tell you. But it was a big black figure running from us.
Wow, that's amazing. So since the first time you saw them and your little kids and stuff, can you kind of take us through sequentially through the, you know, like from the beginning to the end of when you notice these things? If you can kind of recall it that in that kind of way, like from the when you were little kids and you first noticed them, all the way through the last time.
The first encounter was the one in the woods with me and my buddy hunting for squirrels. The second encounter would be the one where we were in the back 40 and we saw the black figure run from us. The third encounter, which I wasn't around for this encounter. This was told from me from a friend of mine who lived just about a mile up the road from where the 4 of us were in the back 40. He had stepped outside his front door to have a smoke from his parents. He kind of snuck out to smoke a cigarette. He said there was a huge figure standing across the road in the field just staring at him. And he told me he dropped the cigarette and ran back in the house and went straight back to his bedroom and shut the door and crawled underneath the covers. It scared him that bad. He said it was huge, huge figure. My mom had told me a story that she'd heard something outside her bedroom window one night that was breathing really heavy, like it ran a marathon, she said. And we lived in an old school brick house. I mean, it was a thick brick walls and had the old style windows. And she said you could hear that thing breathing through the wall. And she said, I just laid there. She said, I wasn't going to move or nothing. But she said it was really, really struggling to breathe, to get the air. Like it had been running for a while. And we always kind of thought that was, strange. But, the encounters have went on over the years. I had an encounter about 4 years ago. Something jumped out in front of my truck on the road one night, coming home late, and I had my nephew with me, and we both saw it, and we just kind of sat there and looked at each other and was real quiet and kind of like, did you just see what that was? Yeah, and we just kept on driving. Well, the next day I went back to where it had jumped out in front of us, and there was footprints in the field that I got a couple pictures of, 2 good prints, and I laid a tape measure, a wooden one, against the side of the print, and it came out at 19 inches long, and you can see the toes where it had stepped. And I took pictures of that and made copies. I got all kinds of pictures of different nests and saplings that were bent over, and some more footprints out of another small area that you just wouldn't think something would be staying there as close as it was to human, But I've got lots and lots of pictures. I've even got physical evidence that I have kept in a Ziploc bag and a cooler in the back room of my house in my deep freezer. And I've got pictures of it the moment I found it. We took pictures of it. And I've had some of it sent off with a guy that I know and had it tested, and it's come back as what was the word they used? Inconclusive. They didn't know what it was. Well, one day I was sitting here at the house watching Swamp Loggers, that show on TV. We were down in the Carolinas, and they're cutting the trees down and logging them out of swamps. And then I was looking them up on the internet, and it showed where they were in these real bad swamp area, and they found this huge nest. And what was inside that nest was the same thing that I've got frozen in my freezer. So that really just kind of startled me a little bit. So I think I was on to something. And had an encounter in a state preserve park where we hunt every once in a while. I was walking by myself, and I was being paralleled up on the hill. At first, I thought it was another hunter, but I couldn't see up through the trees too well. But whatever it was when it walked, it was real heavy footsteps, real heavy footfalls. But it would walk right with me. And I kept right on walking until I got to the truck, and I waited on my buddy to get back there to me. But these encounters have went on over the years. I've had them as close to my house as within probably 100 yards, 200 yards from my house. My mom was here one night, and she was watching our little ones while we went out on a date night, and she stepped out on the porch to smoke a cigarette, and she said this god-awful scream came out of nowhere to the south of the neighborhood out in the field, and she threw her cigarette down and got back in the house and waited till we got home, and she was telling me about it. So I took her back in the computer room, and I brought up the Bigfoot vocalizations that they have on the internet, and I played a few of them for her. And the one that she picked out was the Sierra Nevada one, the screams from Sierra Nevada. She said that's exactly what it sounded like to her.
Wow.
But like I said, I've had people, you know, tell me stories and things they've heard and seen. But I'd say the craziest one that's ever happened to us happened on my father-in-law's property, which is just west of where we live. And he moved out of the house, and he asked us if we would take care of his two dogs that he had. And he had one that was in a pen, in a homemade pen, and he had one that was on a chain with a big spike down on the ground. And they were just, one was a German Shepherd and one was this little mutt dog. So we would, you know, every day we'd try to go over and feed them and, you know, check on them and stuff. And one day I went over there, and the front gate to the German Shepherd's kennel was ripped off. And, you know, when I say ripped off, I mean it was screwed in and stuff, you know, but it literally was ripped off and laying to the left side of the pen in the ground. And the German Shepherd was gone. Then a few days later, we went back over there, and the little mutt dog, she was gone. And when I say she was gone, she was chain, 4-foot spike that went in the ground, pulled clean out, gone. So I said something to my father-in-law about it, and he said, well, because I don't know, maybe somebody just stole them. Maybe somebody just had to have a dog. Well, he's got some small patch of woods behind his property, and me and my cousin, we went back in there, and he was doing some mushroom hunting, and I was doing some metal detecting. I always take a camera with me, you know, throwaway camera, or, you know, have my cell phone camera with me, because, you know, things over the years happen, and, you know, I'm trying to take pictures of stuff, try to document everything that I think is weird, or I think that, you know, there's no way a human done it. So we're back there, and we find some old nests. We find some saplings bent over some game trails, and we decided to, you know, walk out of the woods to the north and follow the old tree line between these two fields that come off this woods to the east. We decided to walk that, and we get back there, and we're standing in this tree line, and we're standing underneath a couple trees, and we're just talking kind of quietly with each other. And all of a sudden, I just happen to look up, and there's this rock that comes out of the other side of this cornfield, and it's coming right at us. And I'm just standing there. I'm just froze. I'm just locked on this rock in the air coming towards us. And I literally watched this thing fly through the air and land about 3 feet beside my cousin. He literally, it scared him so bad that he almost jumped up in my arms. And this rock was the size of a volleyball. And I picked it up. It was heavy. And I looked over where it come from, and I'm thinking, that's about a 70-yard pass. If you're on a football field, that's about a 70-yard pass right there. And when this thing hit the ground, brother, it went thump, and it stayed. And my cousin's like, we got to go. We got to go. I want out of here. Something's not right. We need to go. Okay. All right. Let's go. So we got out of there. Well, a couple of days later, I had developed a film that was in that throwaway camera, because I taking pictures of the trails and the saplings bent over, and, you know, anything I thought that was strange, I was snapping pictures on. Well, in this one picture, there's a little black mass against this tree, and it looks like matted, nasty fur. So I get a magnifying glass out, and I'm looking at it, and sure as all get out, it looks like an animal sometimes standing there against that tree. It's a little animal. So I put two and two together. I'm thinking, well, what if that was the baby And Mama's somewhere close, and she's mad that we're close to the baby, and we're mad that we're in her area. You know what I mean? And she threw that rock at us to get out. So that was probably the most hair-raising experience that I've ever had. And that was probably 6 years ago. The other experience that I had was with my hunting buddy on the one of the state parks that we hunt at in another county just south of us. We were walking a 4x4 trail, and as we come up on the little crest of the hill before you go over a little creek where the train trestle would go over, there's these two great big dead trees laying across the 4x4 trail. And here's where it gets really, really interesting. These two trees were literally on top of a hill. Each side of the 4x4 trail, there's a little bit of a hill. Probably, I'm 6'4", so I'd say probably about 6 foot tall each side. You know, a hill going down both sides of this trail. These trees, okay, had literally been, the best way I can describe it, Brenton, is picked up, drugged down, and laid on the trail. On each side had dead tree. And they were laid in a way, and I've got pictures of this, they were laid in a way that the tree limbs were not broke, so they didn't fall by Mother Nature or a windstorm or anything. They weren't drugged down with a chain. They weren't drugged down with toe straps, because I looked them over really well. The tree limbs, the tops of the trees, the tree limbs were interlaced like you would interlace your fingers. And these trees, me and my buddy, I mean, we're both big boys and we're strong. We couldn't budge one of them. We couldn't pick it up to move it or nothing. And we just stood there. And he's real skeptical. Me, I'm thinking, okay, yeah, I know you're here. You know what I'm saying? I know how this got here. And I mean, I examined them trees for probably 20, 30 minutes. I couldn't find cut marks, chain marks, strap marks, hook marks, nothing. They were interlaced, like, you know, like in an X, which is telling me, you know, stay out. Don't go any further, which we went further. I mean, you know, we were just hunting. And I saw one of the people that was there at the park that helped maintain the park, and I said something to him about it. And the answer I got was, well, you know, Mother Nature, windstorms whip through there. It can do strange things. Are you kidding me? There's no way that Mother Nature could drop two trees like that and interlace the finger, the tree limbs like you interlace your fingers in your hands. You know what I mean? It just was, there's no way. No way.
Right. So they were intertwined in a way that you knew wasn't natural.
Oh, there's no way. Brenton, there's no way. Mother Nature can do some amazing things, but she ain't gonna do this. I'm sorry. There's just no way.
I mean, what was so unnatural about it?
What was so unnatural about it was you could see the drag marks from the hill on both sides where it had been drugged down and literally picked up and they'd been intertwined.
Okay.
I mean, you can see it in the pictures. Like I said, I've been taking pictures of things. If I can't come up with a rational explanation for myself, then right. I'm taking pictures of things.
Right.
You know.
So for one, your observation was that this was not anything that could possibly be natural.
No, there's no way.
Okay.
There's no way. Unless God himself comes down and says, Jamie, me and Mother Nature got together and this is what we did on this day. There's no way. You know what I'm saying? It's impossible, man.
Yeah,
I mean, we couldn't budge them trees.
I agree with you. Believe me, I've seen it. I've seen that kind of stuff before, and arches and X's and intertwined stuff that the trees are kind of intermingled together, and trees
Yes.
that are leaned up that weren't grown in that area. It's like, okay,
Yep.
this tree did not even originate in this area, you know,
Mhm.
and that's just there's no way, you know, there's no possible way. It's like if you have like an oak tree that's intermingled up through some spruce or whatever, you know what I'm saying, and you're looking around and you're trying to figure out where each tree grew from, and there's no root system for two of those trees, then that tree was brought there.
Yeah.
Period.
Like I said, these two trees, you can see the drag marks in the picture where it's like lifted up, and then they just kind of set it down, let it fall, and then they drug them together to intertwine them.
And you have pictures
You know,
of
I
that?
was trying to point. Yeah, I got pictures of that. I got pictures of everything, like I said, that I cannot explain. I've got footprints galore. I've got, like I said, I've got the physical proof in the freezer. What the physical proof I have is scat. You know, I've showed it to a couple biologists. I showed it to some farmers, and nobody's ever seen this before. You know, and I've got this stuff frozen in my freezer. That's been there for years. But like I said, you know, it's the weirdest thing I've ever seen, because as soon as I gathered it up, I came home with it, and I got on the internet, and I was looking up all North American mammal scat, and none of it comes close to what I got. But it's the same thing that was found on the Swamp Loggers YouTube page, where they'd found that nest, and it was full of that in there. And I was like, holy cow.
Yeah, I mean, if you have some pictures and stuff of some of that, then you know, send them to me, and I'll put them in there.
Yeah, I'll make you some copies and send you everything I got. Yeah. But like I said, the encounters have been going on for years, man. I mean, just not only for me, but I've had people tell me, you know, there was a firefighter here locally that was riding his 4-wheeler in the north part of the county, and this thing screamed out so loud that it literally shook his insides. And he shook the 4-wheeler off, hopped off of it because he was running down the side of a big woods, and ran home. Left the 4-wheelers laying there in the field, and took off running home. It scared him that bad. Broad daylight.
Right. Yeah, you know, I've had a lot of people on talk about that. You know, the sound and, you know, and stuff like that, the infrasound and ultrasound, and even had Kumbo come on, who was NASA scientist, and he was talking about the different recordings that he's made of these things chanting, and they're collecting different evidence of ultra and infrasound that these things are using to, and most of the time you're not going to hear it. So that's one thing that I think a lot of people don't understand, is that there's many sounds that these things make that you are not going to hear because they're not audibly available to your hearing range.
Right.
So they're making sounds that will make you feel sleepy, or make you feel fearful, or make you feel anxious, or whatever the case might be. There's so many different type of effects that they can have, and so there's a lot of danger in this kind of situation that are beyond our understanding. Go ahead.
The only sounds that I personally have heard, I've heard some whoop sounds here around where I live. I've heard the whoop whoop. You know, I've heard those a few times. I've heard the knocks. You know, but the only time that I've heard an actual scream, and it literally took me out of my seat and spun me around, and had me just, I mean, totally, you talk about going from almost asleep to fully awake and the adrenaline flowing through your veins like you've never had it. We were down in Newcastle. Yeah, you know where that is, Newcastle, Indiana?
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah. It's east of Indianapolis, about probably 40, 50 minutes away.
Okay, I got you.
We were down there. We were down there at a place, and we were sitting around a camp, little fire pit, campfire pit area, middle of the night, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and we've been sitting there talking and having a good time. And I'm about half asleep, and a couple of people around me, they're asleep, and all of a sudden I hear this scream come out of the woods west to us. And I mean, when I say west to us, I'm talking this scream had to be from where I was to where I heard it at least a mile away. And it was loud. And I literally was up out of my chair, and I started walking towards the scream through the yard. And it went on probably 5 to 7 seconds. Just one drawn out, whoa! You know, I mean, it just, I was like, holy cow, what the hell was that?
Right.
And I never heard it again.
But you think about these creatures that can make sounds, that can do things that are beyond our comprehension. Because I know that they can make sounds that can make you sleepy. They can make you forget. They can make you ill. They, like make you sick. Actually,
Yeah.
There's so many different type of weaponized versions of these sounds, and it sounds like you haven't had a whole lot of that kind of activity hit you all. But it happens, and that's a fact. It does happen. So that becomes kind of a scary potential when you're running across these creatures, that they could do things that basically, if you run across one of them, they can hit you with infrasound and it'll make you forget everything. And then you kind of come to several hours later, and you're maybe 45 minutes away from there. It's like, what happened? Or they could hit you with sound that makes you get physically ill, and then it takes you a couple sleep cycles to get over it. Or a lot of different things like that. That to me becomes very scary kind of scenarios. That when you run across these things, that there could be scenarios like that can happen, and it changes everything that you're out there trying to do or whatever. Right?
Yeah. I've never had that happen to me, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I've never been, I've been scared, don't get me wrong. But I've always tried to keep my wits about me, and make sure I could maybe, have a way out, I guess is what I'm saying. But that scream down there that night was unbelievable, how loud it was and how far off it was. And it was so clear. I was just, awestruck by it.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. But like I said, I've seen strange things in the woods. Like I said, I can't explain, and that's why I take pictures. And I know there's been times that we've been out hunting and stuff, and I know we're not alone. I know we're not. I can hear the footsteps. I've not smelt anything. Like, they say it has a bad odor and everything. I've not really experienced that yet. But I know that we've been stalked and we've been followed when we hunt. And I know it exists. I'll tell you a story my uncle used to tell us when he was alive. This was years ago when I was a little boy. My other uncles would make fun of him, and I really felt bad for him about it, but he lived up in Michigan most of his life, and he'd went on a hunting trip in the Upper Peninsula, and he was up in a tree stand about 20, 25 feet up in this tree, and the sun had just come up, and he was sitting there waiting on a big buck to come by like everybody else would, and he noticed movement out of the corner of his right eye, and he got real still. He's thinking, okay, here we go. And this black creature, he said, black from head to toe, easily 10 foot tall, comes walking out of the brush in front of him. And he said, I froze when fear. But he said, I kept my eye on him. He didn't know I was there. He had walked over to a little bunch of bushes that had some berries, and he knelt down and was eating the berries. And he said, the only thing I had on me was had a pistol, and he was hunting with a compound bow and arrow. And he said, I watched that thing probably for 10 minutes, eat them berries and walk around and sniff the air. And he said, finally it started to, walk away from me. And he said, damn near pissed my pants. He said, I stayed in that stand until I couldn't see it no more, and I couldn't hear it no more walking. And when I thought it was safe, he said, I eased down as quiet as I could. And he said, when my feet hit the ground, they hit the ground running. He said, I ran all the way to my truck. I left the stand there. I never went back and got it. He said, I got the truck and I drove all the way home that day. And he said, I've never left my property to hunt anywhere else ever again. It scared him that bad. And my uncles would sit and laugh at him and tell him he saw a big old black bear. But he told us, every time he'd tell us, you could see the fear in his eyes. And he always told the story word for word the same every time. And, I believed him, because, over the years, the things I've seen and heard, what else could it be? But as of lately, it's been awful quiet up here where I live. This past summer, I did get a bunch of pictures of a trackway west of my house on 2 separate occasions, and they were about my size, about size 12, and you could see some of the toes you could see, but you could definitely see the heel and everything, and you could see every time it take a step in the mud, it would, the mud would squish out, in the air. Some of them were 1 inch deep, some were 2 inches deep, and it was 2 separate trackways, but they were going through the same 2 fields, and you could see them from the road, which was just unbelievable that nobody else would stop and look at that. And so, what the hell is that? But right along with that trackway, there's coyote tracks and there's deer tracks. So, the coyote are running the deer, and this thing's probably running right along with the coyote going after the deer. And I would think it's probably a young adult, my opinion. So, but yeah, that's pretty much what I've got up here in East Central Indiana for you. I'm not the only one that's seen things and heard things around here. A lot of people, you know how it is, they don't want to talk. Think you're crazy or whatever, but every time I go out, no matter what I'm doing, I'm definitely keeping my eyes open, and I got a camera with me, so, because you just don't know what you're going to see, what's out there. But I will send you those pictures of everything I got, so. You still there, Brenton? Brenton?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I lost you there for a minute. You still there?
Yeah. Any pictures you have, go ahead and send them to me immediately, because I'll get this up and going real quick. It doesn't take me.
Yeah. I'll get them copied off here in the next couple of days, and I'll get your address from you before we leave, hang up tonight, and I'll get them all. I'll get it all sent out to you, and you tell me what you think. So.
Yeah, well, I'll get this video going within a day. So, if you're gonna send me some pictures, you send them to me now.
Okay. Okay.
But because I like to get the fans this stuff as quick as I can, because they want the shows for sure. But man, I really appreciate you sharing your stories with us, and fascinating stuff. And Indiana is an interesting place that most people don't think about as being a Bigfoot type kind of place, but it sure is. Indiana.
Yeah, I think they just migrate through here. You know what I mean? I don't think they really stick around for much long, but I definitely know they come through here. But like I said, been kind of quiet lately, so nobody's come forth and talked to me about anything. But the trackways that I got this summer, that's the latest thing I've got. So.
Right. Well, it's as good a place as any. So Bigfoot can be anywhere in this whole country. If there's any woods, if there's any places for them to hang out and to hunt down some deer or whatever, they're going to be there. So Bigfoot's in Indiana, and it's in Ohio. It's in every state other than Hawaii, from what I've always heard. So,
well, the things, the pictures I'll send you. I've even showed them to the local game wardens around here, and they just laugh at me, and it's like, really, really, you're out in the woods more than I am, and you think this is a joke? Whatever, I stopped even talking to them guys.
Yeah, no, you don't need to contact them, man. We don't need to prove it to anyone. We know ourselves. So,
yeah.
I'm done trying to prove it to people. People who know, and people who don't. So.
Well, I've always said, I said what's going to happen is some dude's gonna get off work on the third shift, and he's gonna be really tired. He's gonna be driving home, and one of them creatures is gonna step out in front of him. He's gonna smoke it, and there it is.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's probably what'll happen.
Yeah,
you get all these guys out here hunting it down, and this poor sap nails into the car. So
yeah,
but yeah, it's there's definitely some up here. I mean, like I said, if I can't figure it out in my own mind, then it's got to be something else. So that's the way I look at it. I try to be optimistic about it first and look at the whole picture, but if you can't get it figured out on your own, then, what else could it be? So,
right.
And I've talked to a lot of people around here. I've talked to a lot of farmers, and I've had one farmer tell me he's heard screams when he's been running his dogs, and the dogs will come back and they'll get underneath his feet, almost trip and make him fall. They're so scared to death.
Right.
So, and that's been years ago that happened, and it's been close to me, same county almost. So.
Yeah. Well, Jamie, thank you very much. Just stay on the line there, and everybody out there in YouTube land, thank you for listening. I appreciate it. And if you want to share something, you can go into the description, and you'll see my email, brentonsawin@gmail.com. And contribute. You can go to the PayPal link and contribute. And basically, God bless you, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.